time at the end for questions. But I also want to let you know if something comes up as we are speaking, please don't hesitate to put a question in the Q&A box if we have an acronym that you don't understand or there's something that we went too fast. Please do ping us on the Q&A box, but do know that there is a time separated at the end for questions as well. Okay, here's our agenda for today. We already did introductions. I want to quickly talk about the program, talk about what is operations, and also why LGO is so great, what the LGO impact is worldwide. We're going to then go into some details about the program structure. We're going to talk about our partner companies, which is a very important part of our program. I will then do some data. We'll do some class profile numbers, and then I want to just quickly go over the application checklist for the upcoming cycle. All right, let's get going. Ooh, I'm trying to get going here. Sorry, folks. Here we go. All right, so LGO, we are a dual degree program here at MIT. You will get an MBA from the Sloan School of Management, and you will get an MS in one of 8 different engineering departments here on campus. We are not a typical dual degree. We are a very integrated program. We're not one of those dual degrees where you're taking some business classes one semester and taking some engineering classes another semester. You're an LGOer when you're here, first and foremost. We have our own staff. We have our own student lounge. We have our own vision. We have our own mission. The key takeaway of what I'm trying to say is you are LGO. I often will say, as a result of graduating the LGO program, you will get an MBA and an MS, but you're always an LGO first and foremost. That's a very important part of our community, and that's why we think we have such a strong community. As such, we took some time to create a mission statement, a vision statement for the program over the last couple of years. And here's the vision. I just want to quickly note some of the important parts here. The LGO program and its community of students, faculty and partner companies, and alumni aim to provide an innovative curriculum with a focus on manufacturing, operations, engineering, data technology, and leadership. And this is really the key point here. We include a deeply experiential delivery centered around an on-site thesis project at our LGO partner company. That's a key statement there. What we're trying to do here, we're trying to create leaders in global operations worldwide. We think the way to do that is to be very hands-on, roll up your sleeves, practical, get in there and do it. Because of that, we have a guaranteed 6-month internship with the program. Internship, we kind of have to say internship for the registrar, but it's really, like mentioned, it's a project. It's a research project at our partner companies. I'll get into the partner companies in a minute, but we have 20 plus partner companies that work with us. And the list is pretty impressive. They supply the internships or research projects. And you're in there. You're there 9 to 5. You're working. Like I said, you're rolling up your sleeves and you're getting in there. The program is then capped off, as you see there, with a thesis that sort of summarizes all of it, what you learned, how you apply that in your internship. But again, I just do want to reinforce the point. We are an integrated program. We are LGO first and foremost. Real quick before we get into the details, I've mentioned operations a number of times already. Clearly, that's the O in LGO. But we noticed over the years that, operations it actually means a lot of different things to a lot of different people at a lot of different companies. So we took some time to really sit down and define what we think operations is. Again, I'll summarize. I know you all can read very well, but the key to operations, it's the systems, the technologies, the processes, and even the people, which is key. Those are all critical to the creation and capture of value from goods and services. That's the key. Capturing and creating value from goods and services. That could mean anything from, last mile optimization delivery for Amazon. It could mean making a wing on one of the Boeing airplanes more efficient. It could mean laying out the most useful manufacturing plant layout for Nike. I'm just throwing out examples here, but the key to here is that it could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But the key that summarizes and ties it all together is creating value from goods and services. Okay, why LGO? Why is it such a great program? We think it's probably the best dual degree program in the world, but 2 degrees in 2 years. We take advantage of the summer and winter semester, so it's 2 calendar years. But those 2 degrees are world class. The MBA at Sloan right now, I think, is number 5 in the world on US news. And I think it even got number 1 in financial news, Financial Times lately. And then MI the MS and the engineering school, I don't even think they do rankings anymore because it's always number 1. It's engineering and MIT. So these aren't just 2 degrees. These are 2 world-class top-ranked degrees that you're getting in 2 years, which I think is very, very important. The program is designed to be a career accelerator. We want you to come into this program. It's grad level, so we want you to come in with experience. We want to, the classes are very interactive, so we want to learn from you. We want to hear and see your experiences. We want to talk about your successes, talk about your failures. These are really important learning tools. And so a key note to that, though, is we're really not designed to um, come and learn about a new engineering, field. If you were, I'm giving an example here, a mechanical engineering undergrad, 9 times out of 10, when you come to LGO, you're going to get your MS in mechanical. We want each of the, you're getting a full MS from the engineering school. So they have pretty strict requirements that you have to meet to get into the program. So that's key. We're not learn engineering 101. We are working with your experience, and it's very much a career accelerator. Right now, we are driving change in industries that are shaping the world right now. Um, that's important to say. The current, business world, the political world, there's a lot of turbulence going on. We all know. And we're really there in the middle of it. And that's really at the next point, at the intersection of technology and business. Right now, that's kind of essential. You need to be at that intersection to really start tackling the problems and start tackling things to make this world more efficient. As I mentioned, we have a passion for building things and getting stuff done. We really do. That really runs deep with LGO. We really, really want to roll up our sleeves and get in there. Also, we have an amazing community here. Not only are you part of the LGO community and all the resources and the alumni and the current students, you're also a Sloan student. So you get all of the Sloan resources available, all of connection to their alumni, their students. Likewise with the School of Engineering, you're a School of Engineering student. And then lastly, actually, you're also an MIT student. So you get all of what the MIT community has to offer as well. It's almost like being part of 4 communities in one. And then at the sake of sounding like a used car salesman, you're actually getting 2 world-class degrees in 24 months at the half the cost of the MBA. And the reason for that is not only do our partners supply the internships that we have, they also help fund the program. Um, Outside of funding the program, they're very integrated throughout the year. So again, I'll get to that in a minute, but the key here is that because we have such generous and amazing funding from our partners, we give every enrolled student a fellowship of around 50 to 60. This year was around 53% of the tuition right off the bat. So we take the approach of we want to share the wealth. We don't just give a handful of full rides and then kind of ignore everybody else. Everyone right off the bat gets 50 to 60%. Every year is a little different between tuition and numbers. This year was over $100,000. So everyone right off the bat got a fellowship for $100,000. So that's really amazing. That's, I think, one of the best financial packages right off the bat from any programs out there. And we all know how things are expensive in the financial world right now. Having a $100,000 fellowship is really nice to start when you start your grad programs. Okay, moving on. LGO impact. This is important. I always tell everyone when I'm talking about LGO that I will bet, and I'm saying this to you all as well, that it's a little early this morning, but either today or yesterday, you have interacted with something that an LGO student had a huge impact on. If you got an Amazon package, if you took a flight with Boeing, a Boeing plane, if you're wearing Nike clothing, or shoes. We are in major industries doing really amazing things, really moving the needle. And that's key. We want to make sure that we have impact. And yeah, between the partner companies, we've always been very proud that LGO really has a handprint in a lot of the major industries and what we're doing today in the world. Next. Oh, hang on. All right, let's get into some details. Let me just really quickly check. I saw that there were a couple Q&A questions. Let me pause real quick. Oh, can we discuss the from the full-time MBA graph? Yep, we'll get to that in a minute. What kind of internship process is available for LGO students? Will it associate with more engineering part of the curriculum or business part? Yep, and we got to that in a minute too. Okay, let's talk about the structure. As you heard me say, the partners are a very important part of this program. And you can see with the picture in the middle there, LGO isn't at just the intersection of school of engineering and Sloan. We actually are at the intersection of three, including the industry partners. That's a very important part of our program. As I mentioned, the industry partners not only help fund the program, they supply the internships, but they're integrated throughout the program all the time. During the summer, we have partner intro series where they come on campus and talk about who they are and what they do. Throughout the program, speakers, alumni that work at the partner companies, all kinds of amazing sort of natural networking opportunities arise because you're interacting with them so much, which is really a nice little side benefit of the program too. We do see, it's not required and they're not expecting it, but we do see a good number of students graduate and go to partner companies because they're so integrated, because you as an intern, you're working there for 6 months, another great way to start networking and making connections. The point though, as I'm talking, is the partners are a very important part of what we do. On the left, on the red, you'll see the 8 different departments that you can get your MS in at the School of Engineering: Aero Astro, Chemical Engineering, Civil and Environmental Engineering, Material Science, Electrical Engineering, Computer Science, Mechanical Engineering, Nuclear Science, and Operations Research. Okay, that's the structure. More on our companies now. So here's the list. Again, it's a pretty impressive list, I think. We work hard to make valuable partnerships with our companies. They're not companies that just come and give an internship and move on. We want to make them a lifetime partner. We have a large vetting process that we go through. We actually even have staff members dedicated to just partner companies. That's important because we want to make them part of the net, integrated into the fabric of who we are. It's not, here's an internship and I'll see you later. That's not what it is at all. They're very much here and part of what we do. There was a question, what kind of internship prospects are available for LGO students? Will it be associated with more engineering part of the curriculum or business part? So actually, Ted, this is right up your alley. Do you want to answer that one?
So the internship projects are solving a challenge that the company has. All of the projects are assessed by our research and academics team in LGO and determine which departments are appropriate. So they will have engineering content and business content. So it is not a business case analysis. You'll be using the things you learn in a classroom and applying them to the problems. So they are an engineering master's thesis, but it's a dual degree, so it will have business components as well. And it has to meet the requirements of your engineering department. The business doesn't have a as stringent requirement in terms of content.
Thank you, Ted. And yeah, I'd like to also reinforce again, like I said, and like Ted said, we are an integrated program. We're not, you're doing business one time, you're doing engineering another time, and the internship is one or the other. Everything that you do has an LGO theme to it, even the internships. There's a couple of admissions questions that I'm going to get to at the end. But real quickly, while we're here, the first question, can we discuss the prospects of engineering classes and how it is integrated with the MBA curriculum? Also, how LGO grad is different from the full-time MBA grad from career perspective. Again, we're not just an MBA, we're not a technical MBA. So really, the path of a full-time MBA grad is different than the path of an LGO grad. They're two different degrees. The LGO program and its goals are different than an MBA program. So do keep that in mind when you're applying and looking for programs to attend. We are not a technical MBA. We are a program in and of itself that has a vision, that has a mission, which is different from just a full-time MBA. Again, Ted,
Adding, adding on to that, Dominic, the LGOs are going into different roles where they're interfacing between business and engineering and managing and leading organizations that are the full breadth of operations. And also, if you look at the number of dual degree programs versus straight MBAs, your your competition is very different.
Mhm.
So LGOs are recruited because they're LGOs, not because they're MBAs.
So do keep that in mind. Great point, Ted, as you're applying and making sure, you want to be on the right path. So keep that in mind. Thanks, Ted. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the structure of the program. So first year, and again, as I mentioned, we take advantage of the summer and winter semesters. So we're a June start. You start right off in the summer semester, and you go right first thing LGO core. And again, to reinforce, we have programming that is just LGO specific, like the summer core. And it's actually, it's great. Our class size usually runs 45, 50. The sweet spot's around 48 students every year. And you are on campus. The campus isn't empty in the summer. There are definitely other students and other programs here, but for the most part, it's pretty quiet, which ends up being a really great thing. Number one, because you really get to bond with your classmates, your other 48 classmates. You're full on LGO. You're really getting into the LGO theme. And then it's always great, the fall semester will start and it's pretty hectic, but you already have experience being on campus. You know where to go, you know how to, figure out and solve problems, administrative things. So it's always nice to have that summertime too. Obviously, you're learning amazing LGO specific things and the great content, but it's nice to kind of get used to the campus. You really, like I said, you really get set with your core and your other members of the LGO program. And when you go into the fall, it's nice to not just be like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And then having said that, the very first fall, you will go right to the MBA core and do the MBA core, as with the other 400 plus Sloan MBA students. And so you're deep diving right away. Next thing, so again, we do take advantage of winter semester. So the very first winter semester, we do what we call domestic plan trek. And this, I argue, is probably the one thing that sets us apart, is the most important part of LGO. It sort of encapsulates everything that we talk about, the practical nature of the program, what we're trying to do. So domestic plan trek, and it's another actual amazing thing that the partners do. We can't get all the partners due to scheduling and everything, but for the majority of January, as a class, we go around the country and go to our partner companies and do a deep dive. We go, and like I said, we don't do them all, but we try again to get as many. But we will go to the Nike, campus out in Portland. We will go to the Blue Origin launch site down in Florida, and you do a deep dive. And it's funny, the staff once in a while gets to go on DPT. We love going on DPT, and every once in a while we get to go. And a couple years ago, I went to the northwest leg of the trip, which Boeing and Amazon and Nike. And I had a friend who lived in Portland, and so I went and visited him after, and I told him what we did and where we got to go on campus, on the Nike campus, and they were shocked. It's not just like the sort of tourist, tour guide that they give when you go to these. We really deep dive into the company, what they do. You meet people in the company. You talk about how they do things. You see it happening. It's an amazing, amazing thing that we have. And we really, really are proud of DPT and think it really sets us apart from a lot of all the other programs. You then start your electives in the spring semester. You follow up, then the second summer semester is when you start your internship. So your internship starts in the summer, second summer, and continues through the fall of your second year. Once that's done, you will then go into the second winter semester with IAP, Independent Activities Period. That's actually an MIT thing, IAP. It's kind of like I always like to kind of describe it as, it back in the day, Google used to say, use 30% of your time to work on projects that aren't related to your job to expand your knowledge and that's kind of like what IAP here is on campus. To kind of just go out of your sort of normal comfort zone and work on other projects. LGOers typically during IAP are finishing up their thesis, finalizing things, but you're open and active to do anything in IAP. And then the final spring semester of your second year, you are finishing up your electives. You are making sure you meet all your requirements, and then really finishing up and finalizing your thesis. Okay, the picture slide. We always have to do a picture slide, but we think it's important to show really what we're all about. Outward Bound, you actually do that during your first summer in the LGO core. Again, another really awesome, you're not in the classroom, you're not worrying about studying or doing things. You go as a group, you go and do Outward Bound. It's a super fun day. And again, you're just building these amazing connections with your classmates. You're starting that networking process for your lifelong connections. So it's really cool. We think it's a really cool little extra thing. The next two slides there are just examples of DPT. So that's a famous moment. Every year when we go to Caterpillar, as a class, we get up on the big, huge, massive dump trucks that they have and take a class picture. But that's what I'm saying, you're not just going to the CAT facility and sitting in a meeting room talking about what they do. You're going in and doing and seeing those things. Um, it's pretty amazing. You think, with CAT, they're trying to electrify their entire fleet of big trucks like that. So it's stuff that's right up LGO's alley, and it's pretty cool. You'll see also, I was mentioning, you go to the launch site at Blue Origin. That picture, I think, was taken a couple of days after their first launch. I think it was last January, like their literal first launch ever. There was like debris still on the launch site from the launch. Like you go up in it. We actually got to go all the way up to the top of the launch tower. The most petrifying experience in the world. But again, amazing that you're there looking and doing things. So DPT isn't just, like I said, you're not just going around and looking through a window. You're in it. Um, Bottom left, this picture really demonstrates how you are part of many different communities within MIT as your LGO. One year we had two LGOs win the big MIT climate and energy hack. So you are available to do all of everything that MIT has to offer, which I think is really just an amazing thing. And then we, always have a nice graduation picture. We have a best thesis award, and graduation day is always so special. But yeah, that's our picture slide. Oh, all right, real quick. I have just two more slides, and then we'll get into some more questions. I know I've been talking a lot here. Let's look. Ooh, sorry. Let's look at the numbers. I won't bore you with all the numbers and details. Again, you can read, but some of the highlights. As I mentioned, and sorry, one note. These numbers are the averages for the last three classes, not just the last class. 49 class size. A question there was about the minimum years of experience to be considered for LGO. So the average, as you can see on the screen, is 5. However, the sweet spot's 3 to 8. We do not accept anyone with 0 or 1. And on very, very, very rare occasions, we have some that come in with like 2.5, almost 3 years. Again, very rare. The majority are around 5 years. And again, we want you to come with experience. We want you to come and talk about what you've been doing in those 5 years. Again, on average. One thing I want to note on a quick side note, I want to give one program some time here. We've started a new initiative too. We saw over the years, we have all these amazing undergrad students that would be amazing LGO students, and we talk about the program at conferences or career fairs, and we basically have to say, hurry up and wait. So graduate your undergrad program and then wait 3 to 5 years and then come apply. And, we would lose touch during that time. And so we created a new program called the Pre-LGO Pipeline, which actually Karen and Ted head up. And the idea of that program, we can talk about this separate if you have any questions. I'm just going to give you some highlights. If you have any questions, please do contact us about that. It's designed to, it's designed actually for graduating seniors, undergrad seniors, or right maybe your first year out of undergrad to be part of the LGO community. It's not a degree granting program, and you're not guaranteed a spot in LGO, but we have career coaching, connecting with LGO alums, connecting with mentors. Karen does a couple of amazing webinars each semester on various different topics. It's a way to be introduced to the LGO community, learn some amazing things, connect with alumni, and really just be connected to us as a community for that time while you're working. It's you can do it, while you're working at night and on the weekends or whenever. But a really great program to think about if you are not quite at the years of experience, but still want to be part of LGO. So again, if you do have any questions about pre-LGO pipeline, do let us know. We will absolutely help you out there. And then again, real quick on the numbers, the GMAT or GRE averages and GPA averages are high. We have some very strict academic standards. We want to make sure that your transcripts are thorough. You'll see also in the middle there, those are the 8 different engineering departments and how many, on average, students we have each year. We don't have any quotas. We don't say, we need 5 to be in CEE or we need 10 to be in mechanical. We let the apps talk to us, and whatever apps we get in, we review individually. And if you are obviously good enough, you're in. And so the last 3 years, though, we've seen mechanical has been very popular. And even actually recently, CE has gone down a little bit, and EECS now is extremely popular. We're seeing a big uptick in EECS. But again, no quotas. We're not pushing for certain numbers. We let the apps guide us. And it's a very holistic approach where we are looking at every part of the app. I mean, then on the right, the previous studies, what the undergrad degrees coming in with. All right, one more slide, I promise. And then we can talk about questions. Application components, the admission slide, our favorite slide. First and foremost, one very important thing. We only have one deadline, November 4th. We are not like MBA programs where we have rounds. Again, to reinforce, we're not an MBA, so only one deadline. Do keep that in mind. So make sure if you're planning to apply, you have your calendar and everything set up. Only one deadline. Application, resume, cover letter, a professional letter of rec, 2 technical letters of rec, a statement of purpose. We'd like to see your current organizational chart, where you are in the company. We have a 90-second video introduction. This actually is one of mine, I know, in our admissions team, one of our favorite parts of the application. Just a quick introduction to talk about who you are, where you've come from. It does not need to be produced. It can be on your phone. As a quick pro tip, though, try not to do it like when you're on the train or something very loud, because we can't hear. But you don't have to have this whole thing where you get directors and lighting. No, no, no. Just give us a quick 90-second intro, upload it into the app. Again, one of my favorite parts, because the community is so important here. We want to make sure we have good community, and so that is a real great way to see you in your own community before. We have a second video question. So how this works is we've preloaded the application with hundreds of sort of behavioral-based questions. When you're not getting judged on the right or wrong answer to these questions, because there's really no right or wrong answers to these questions. So that has nothing to do with it. They're questions like, tell us about a time when you had a challenging team member. How did you handle that? Those kind of questions. You'll get a short period of time to make sure your video and audio are okay. When you hit ready, you get a little timer. And then your camera will turn on and you're shown the random question, and then you have 60 seconds to answer that question. And then it gets uploaded into that. We do require standardized tests. We either take the GRE or the GMAT. There is no preference between either. And sorry, I forgot to edit the slide. We got rid of the short answer question. We incorporated that into the 90-second video as part of the video. So please disregard my fault about that short answer question. Okay, I have been yakking a lot. I will stop here. Um, and again, just to remind you, one deadline, November 4th. Questions. I'm going to take this off so it's not that. All right, let's take a look at some questions. And I'm going in just the random order in which they've come in. So we may be bouncing around a little bit. But can we discuss the electives and how it's designed to integrate with the best of both worlds? How the curriculum is designed and balanced between engineering, business, and industry partners. Considering a highly integrated, close-knit cohort, how does an LGO individual engage outside academics and venture beyond the curriculum? And team, jump in. We're all doing this together. I will say, first of all, it is a little challenging to venture beyond the academics and the curriculum. You are doing a lot of work in 2 years.
Well, Dominic, let me talk first about the courses. So you have to take 6 engineering classes. 2 of them will be in the summer. So for the remaining 3 semesters that you're on campus, you have to take 4 classes. Typically, it's done 1 in the fall, 2 in the spring, and 1 in your final spring. But you can do it spread across those 3. The rest of the time, the first fall, you take MBA core, and the remaining 2 semesters, you take MBA electives. So the first summer is required courses. Those are all predetermined, and 2 of them are engineering, and the rest are MBA. So you'll be taking more MBA classes than engineering, but the amount of time you dedicate it will be pretty balanced. Um, there are plenty of co-curricular activities. Our students get involved with sports analytics conference, energy conferences. So um, that's there are you will be able to experience the fullness of MIT. You won't necessarily be able to do other jobs or have time to start a company. You have discretionary time to really develop and enjoy your full time in graduate school, both socially as well as co-curricular activities, which we consider to be part of MIT. Um, the curriculum really isn't based on our industry partners. You will use what you learn in the classroom on your projects that are at the industry partners.
Thanks, Ed. And yeah, as I was saying the answer, when I said it's hard more, an outside job or things outside of the academics. But thanks, Ed.
I think there's one more thing to add to that, just in case there's any confusion on the part of the people who are here. When you're taking your LGO core courses, you're taking them with the cohort. But when you're taking your MBA courses and some of your engineering electives, you're in a class with other students, not just the LGO students. So you're getting to know all the MBA students, and it broadens your interaction with things that are going on campus as well.
Great point, Karen.
And the
Um,
engineering classes will be done with PhD students who are in those departments.
Thank you, team. Next, what's the difference between technical and professional letters? Could you talk more about these? Great question. So the professional letter of rec is really focused on looking at, sort of, we ask questions like to the recommendor, how is their communication skills? How do they work in a team? It's really more of a professional setting kind of recommendation. The technical letters of rec we're looking for um, supervisors, whoever you get as your rec, someone that can really attest to your technical aptitude. This sort of gets to, we want to know if you can roll up your sleeves and get in there. And I noticed a little bit ahead, there was a question about academic or professional. So pro tip on that. Um, LGO, so your application will be reviewed by 3 different parties: the LGO team, the MBA team, and the engineering team. You only have to do one app. We all look at the same app. And we all look at every component of every application. It's very holistic, very organic process. But the LGO reviewers are staff members, The MBA reviewers are staff members, and this is sort of industry standards. In business schools, it's always been a staff admissions thing. But in the engineering department, it's always faculty reviewers. And again, that's kind of the industry standard with engineering schools. So we all love faculty and we all love everything faculty does, but they like to hear from other faculty members. So actually, it's not bad at all to get an academic reference. Not required, but to be honest, the ideal mix, again, this isn't saying that you don't have to do this, and if you don't do this, it's bad. It's not at all. But an ideal mix would be for the two technical recs, one from your professional world and one from your academic world. And so it's actually totally okay to get an academic reference. But yeah, the technical recs are looking at, are you down? Are you rolling up your sleeves? Are you getting in there? And that's really where that comes around. Anyone? Ted, Karen, Kemma? Okay. What is the organizational chart? That's just a typical organizational chart for your company that you're currently working for. We just really want to see where you are, in the layout of the company. There are some good detailed directions on our website. There's actually a good section on the MBA website too, on the admissions website, to talk about really what we're looking for. But there's a couple of cases where it can get a little challenging. We know we have a strong military presence here in our program. So military org charts can get a little. Oh, thanks, Emma. Emma just put the link in the chat on our instructions. And also sometimes we see some consulting jobs. It's a little hard to get an org chart, but the goal is to see where you are. It's just a typical organizational chart. You can get all kinds of information on the internet, how to create an org chart. Your company probably already has an org chart. We just want to see where you are in the company, where you stand, where you are in the grand scheme of your department, the company as a whole. Another pro tip, if you happen to have any of your recommenders on that org chart, highlight them for us so we can see, again, your relationships to them. But yeah, it's really just to see where you are in your company.
Dominic, I would just add to that, if someone is unfamiliar with the term organizational chart, it's difficult to say an organizational chart is an organizational chart. Think of it as a hierarchical structure of your company in terms of who's reporting to whom.
That's a great point. I probably should have what an organizational chart is before I answered that. But yes, thank you, Karen. Next, should the technical? Oh yeah, I just answered that. So yeah, absolutely can get an academic, not required, but you totally can. Next, again, just going randomly here. For an applicant with a lower GPA and several weaker grades and foundation. If you have any personal questions about your candidacy, it's best to email us. Email lgo@mit.edu. Thanks, Emma. Email us and we can talk more about your personal candidacy. There's a lot of, to answer that kind of question, we need to know a little bit more. It's a little hard just to kind of pick out from what you have here. And so we really want to have a discussion with you. So please do email us. We want to make this journey consultative. We want to help you. So if you have any questions after this info session, please always contact us. But another thing that we help out with a lot is trying to decide what engineering department is best for you. Again, we want to help. Send a resume. Send it if you really, the key thing is if you have a transcript, and again, it doesn't have to be official transcript, just a list of your classes, that would help a lot. But let us know. We can absolutely help you through that process. And again, on specific stuff, give us an email. It's better to discuss that via email, one-on-one. Do I need to choose an engineering department? Perfect timing. Yes, so you do. You need to know, because it's not a concentration. It's not like an extra. You're actually getting an MS in that department. So you need to declare on the application what you're getting your MS in. That department will have to review the app. And so, yes, you do need to know your engineering department before the process. You need to be on the right path before. So again, if you're having trouble with that, absolutely email us, let us know, and we can work through that with you. And yeah, to the last part, it's not decided based on we don't decide. You have to pick beforehand. All right, moving on. Can you explain more about what if I cannot get a letter from a professor? Again, it's not required. It's totally okay to get letters from your professional world. It's not a requirement. You don't have to do it. If you can, great. Don't worry if you can't.
So
Honestly.
the one thing about the technical letters of recommendation, they need to speak to your technical capabilities, problems that you've solved, and somebody that is in a position that can assess you against other candidates. Professors see lots of students. So like a chief engineer or senior, it wouldn't be a peer that said this person's really good at technical capability XYZ. The professors in the engineering department are trying to assess your readiness to do graduate level work in their department.
Thanks, Ted. What happens when same question again, same thing. And yes, you're right. We totally understand that you may have been out of undergrad for a long time. That's totally okay. Will this record? Oh, yeah. So this specific one will not. We've done a lot of these same webinars over the years. So this specific one will not, but on our website, on our YouTube channel, which you can find on our website, we have recordings of all the info sessions that we have. So there's a version of this, basically the same exact version of this on our YouTube channel. We do a lot of these. It's insane. Okay, moving on. What customized help can you give us over email? Well, I mean, that's a pretty open question. We can try to help you with anything. We
Well,
can help.
for instance, Dominic, you mentioned if you need help determining which engineering department
Mhm.
is the best one for you, sending your resume and transcript and having an email conversation. You can also set up a call with somebody on the admissions team, uh,
Uh,
talk through that.
if you want to be connected to a student or an alumni, anything, we want to be consultative with this. And so really, just email us anything and we can try to help you and if we can't, we will get you to where you can. But yeah, anything really. Do you have companies outside the ones you share today? I come from the AC industry. I'm wondering if is a variety industry representation within the partners LGO. We don't have any outside of the ones we shared. We are always looking when we actually have a few in process, new partners. Can't say anything details right now, but we're always constantly trying to add new partners. And yes, we try really hard. And again, Ted, I can lean on you for this a little bit more. We try very hard to make a variety of industries
Right.
represented in our partners.
But to, uh, in general, no, we don't take somebody that's outside the partnership and do an internship with them.
Mhm.
So in terms of working with the companies, those are the companies you should be thinking about and planning about for doing your internships. We often get the question, oh, I know this company, and if I come as a student, I can introduce you and then I'll do my internship there. It does not work that way. It takes about 2 to 3 years to vet and onboard a new partner. So uh, the projects come in December of your first year. So if you're starting in June, there's no way a new partner that you're thinking about is going to be added for your internship.
And on the second part of your question, yeah, I do think we have a variety of industry representation. I do. Let me check on time. All right, we still have 15 minutes. We have a bunch of questions. I'll keep going. I don't mean to be fast. I just want to make sure I get all the questions in. For LGO, should we have a degree? Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot to mention that on the application side. Yes, you do. It is required to have a STEM degree, undergrad STEM degree. Should candidates show the org chart for all recommenders or just their current org chart? Again, not required that you have to highlight your recommenders. All I'm saying is if they are on your org chart that you submit, highlight them just to let us know. If they're not, it's okay. Just again, not required, but if they are, it's always nice to let us know where they are. How common is it for LGO students to complete one of Sloan's 6 certificates? Can the certificate requirements usually be incorporated into the standard LGO degree plan, or would completing one typically require a course overload or additional coursework beyond the normal LGO requirements? Are some certificates significantly more feasible for LGO students than others? Because, so again, that I hate to give you the it depends, but it depends. It depends on the certificate, it depends on what you're doing, it depends on your MS. There's a
So
lot. Oh, go ahead.
the general answer is it can be done. It's usually not done in that there are some conflicting requirements of courses that you have to take, and you're trying to take your engineering. A certificate is very valuable from Sloan because it communicates to potential employers a focus. Our students take the coursework, but they also have an engineering degree. So they're already differentiated from a vanilla MBA. So you can take the certificates and the courses and customize but you don't have to meet all the check boxes of the certificates. So generally, the LGOs don't do certificates, just fitting everything in.
Mhm.
But
It
personal
could,
opinion, you don't really need them.
yeah. But hey, that's another great question for us at lgo@mit.edu. Shoot us an email and we can talk specifics. Hello, my understanding is that we declare a department in the SOP. I'm assuming you mean statement of purpose. Do we have to keep the statement of purpose project, the SOP project focused, as that would be the basis for the thesis or generic research tied to a professor's area of research? Let me just try to unpack that real quick. So you don't declare the department. There's just a checkbox on the application where you say, I'm going to get my MS on, in this department.
You talk about why you would want to do that department in your statement of purpose. You don't talk about your thesis. You talk about your interests
Yeah.
and why LGO, why that engineering department.
Yeah.
So you won't know what your thesis is until after you're assigned to an internship project. And if there are professors, you can mention those professors, but you're not necessarily going to do your research with those professors.
Yes, exactly. Will you also help assess us to tell us if it's worthy to apply or not useful? We will try as best we can. We can't, again, great question for lgo@mit.edu. And if you have a resume or a transcript, that would help a lot. But, no guarantees are made. It's hard. The application is what does what you're asking. We built the application to assess your worthiness. So it's really the application that can best answer that question, but we can help as best we can. Again, no guarantees. There's nothing set in stone, but we can definitely, see where you stand. We have a few more minutes, a couple more questions. Let's keep going. If I'm not selected for LGO, am I still considered for the MBA program, or would I have to apply separately? So again, before I answer this, there is a technical route there, but just make sure, again, we're not an MBA. And so make sure you understand that when you're applying and there's two kind of different paths. So do be aware of that. We can help you with that. Having said that, while we are reviewing the apps, the MBA team, there is like a little checkbox the MBA team uses that says basically if LGO doesn't accept this applicant, we will put their application into the round 2 applications for the MBA program. Again, not a guarantee. They're just saying, yeah, if LGO says no, we'll put them into the MBA application to be part of the round 2 review process.
But you do not have to apply separately.
No, no, no. I have master's in system engineering and bachelor's in aerospace engineering. I think aerospace. Okay. Again, if it's individual, please just email us. There's a lot more that we need to know before, and it's hard to talk about on the webinar. Email us if you have a resume and a transcript. And again, it doesn't need to be an official transcript. It can even just be a print screen of your classes that you had in college. But that would help a lot. But let's do this over email. It's hard to tell. Does a post-graduation salaried 40-hour per week research assistant position at a research institution count as full-time work experience? if it is staff employment position rather than student assistantship. Uh,
It's yes.
yeah, I think the key is, yeah, post
It-
undergrad.
and you're not a student. It's a full-time work. If it's a
Right.
job that you're doing 40 hours a week, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, because the first part there, post graduation salary, 40-hour a week, that checks all the boxes. But I got a little confused when you're saying at the bottom there, a student assistantship. But yeah, if it's post graduation salary, 40-hour week, yeah, for sure. Ooh, one more came in real quick. We have a few more minutes. How important is prior academic research experience, such as publications or research projects for LGO applicants?
I think if
Oh, go ahead. Go
it's
ahead.
very helpful for assessing your readiness to do particularly the engineering part of it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's always nice. If you have that kind of experience, definitely put it on your resume. So we look at it. Again, we look at every piece of your application organically.
Patents, publications.
Yeah, not required, but anything that you can add that will help us assess for sure. Do the GMAT, GRE scores absolutely need to reach the school by November 4th? I understand it's self-reported in the application, or is it enough if the test is taken and reported by the application deadline? It can take 8 to 10 days to reach school list from ETS. Yeah, so Emma, remind me again of the technical requirements with yes.
Yeah, so you need to have taken it before the deadline.
Yeah.
So it's okay if the ETS hasn't come in, but you have to give us your official scores as soon as possible, soon after they let you know the official percentiles, because we only use the ETS scores to verify when you are enrolling. So you will need to self-report them to the LGO email so that we can update your application as soon as possible, since we do start reviewing applications November 5th.
Right. And to add to that, the deadline is the deadline for a reason, and it's a deadline. So yes, it can take 8 to 10 days, but factor that in. My answer to this is plan this out. Make sure everything's ready by November 4th. If you know that it's going to take 8 to 10 days, then factor that into what you're doing. The deadline is that, as Emma mentioned, we are on a very tight turnaround. We will start reviewing. And if, things aren't there, so do know that the deadline is a deadline for a reason. And I would definitely plan that into your timeline. One more. If an applicant has been out of university for several years, would a research supervisor who has overseen the applicant's technical work and publication be viewed similarly to an academic technical recommender, or would the committee still prefer a former university professor? Let me think about that. So out of university, would a research supervisor who has overseen the applicant's I mean,
Yes.
yeah, it doesn't matter if it's academic or not. It's not required. What we really want to get to is what's on the recommendation. Can they assess to your technical abilities? Can they talk about, are you a good communicator and all that? It's not necessarily where they come from, or, it's not required to get academic. If you can get it, great. But yes, to answer your question, yes. Okay, we're caught up. We're almost right at time. Any last questions from anyone? These have been amazing questions. It's been really great. I'm glad you're asking these questions. Okay.
Dominic, I think it's important to point out to everyone that there's a team of people that review your application. All of the things that are on the list are reviewed not only by the four of us, but other people within the department, other people within MBA. And we really are looking at these to make sure that your path and your goal is something that really works for you as well as for us. We really want it to be a good fit. So I underscore what Dominic said about getting in touch with us through email, setting up a time to talk, so that you really feel that the time that you're spending to do this application is not only time well spent, but that you feel really good about the fact that you're focusing on LGO as part of your grad school experience.
Great point, Karen.
And
go ahead, Ted.
I guess just following up on that, it's hard to do an assessment and say, don't apply. We encourage you to apply. We look at the whole application. So uh, doing a resume transcript can help say, oh, this department would be the better department of choice. If you don't have a STEM degree, we need to assess what classes are, but we can't say you're not qualified to apply by just looking at a piece. We have to see recommenders. We have to see your statement why you're doing this. So we don't want to put up barriers. We want to help you build the best application you can.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
And
Great point.
don't rule yourself out because we're looking,
Yeah.
as Ted said, at everything.
Yeah, and I know you hear that term. It's a holistic organic process, but it really is. They really do. The review process, it's a very thorough review process. Of all the applications that come through MIT, I think the LGO gets looked at the most and really gets in there. We really get to know the students a lot through the application. It is a thorough process. But yes, I want to reinforce, if you have any questions, Emma put the email in the chat. It's also on our website. It's just lgo@mit.edu. Let us know any questions. I've said it a million times. We want to be consultative. That's what Ted and Karen and Emma, we're all saying. We want to be there and help you through this process. I love how Ted mentioned we want to try to get around any barriers, take down barriers, move around barriers. There's never a guarantee, but let us help you through the process. Email us. Do keep in mind we have a large number of events. We are just kicking off the conference and travel season, so we have a lot more webinars. We do some deep dives on internships and the engineering departments. Keep an eye on the events page on our website. If you happen to also notice, like I said, we're starting up a lot of travel to conferences. If we're in your city, come on by, talk to us, meet us. We'll be there. Having said that, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you to Emma, Ted, and Karen. That was really great. Do keep in touch. Have a great day. Goodbye.